a virtual machine and the core components that make up the virtual machines, with more emphasis on virtualization in a business setting and how it can be applied to solve real-world problems. A virtual machine is a software-based emulation of a physical computer that operates within a host machine, providing an isolated computing environment with its own operating system and resources. We are going to be discussing the core component of a virtual machine. A virtual machine operates by separating software from hardware. The key components that enable virtual machines are hypervisor. An hypervisor is a virtual machine monitor. It is the core software layer that creates and runs virtual machines. It sits between the physical hardware host and the virtual machine guest, managing resources allocation, like allocating the CPU, the RAM, the storage. There are two types of hypervisors. We have the type 1 hypervisor, which are referred to as the bare metal. The bare metal runs directly on the server hardware, such as VMware, Microsoft Hyper-V, KVM, which is referred as the kernel-based virtual machine. Then we have the type 2 of the hypervisor. Type 2 of the hypervisor are referred to as the host. This runs on top of an existing host operating system like Oracle, VirtualBox, virtual machine, virtual machineware, that is VMware workstations. We'll have virtual machine hardware. One of the core component is virtual hardware. The hypervisor stimulates physical server for each virtual machine, providing a virtual CPU, virtual memory, virtual NIC, that is network interface, virtual network interface, and virtual storage. Then we also have one of the core components as guest operating system. The guest operating system, the OS is stored inside the virtual machine, such that Windows OS will be able to run on a Linux host operating system. We also have virtual disk. The virtual disk is the file on the, we can also refer to that as the image file. Is the file on the host computer that behave like a physical hard drive, storing the guest OS and data. Then let us also look at virtualization in a business setting. Businesses utilize virtualization to optimize infrastructure, reduce cost, and increase flexibility. First, we'll be looking at different instances and how virtual machine can really play vital roles in business environment. First, we'll be looking at server consolidation. which simply mean data center optimization. For instance, a company has 5 physical server, for example, email server, database server, web application server, file server, and legacy application server, operating at 10% capacity. Using we're using a type one hypervisor like VMware ESXi. This will migrate all 5 server virtual machine into a single powerful physical host server. It will help to reduce hardware cost. This will help to reduce hardware costs, low energy consumption, and very simple to manage. Then, second scenario, we'll be looking at isolated testing and development operations, that is DevOps. In the case where a developer needs to test a new software on a Windows 11 and Windows or on Windows 11, Ubuntu Linux, and also an old Windows Server version simultaneously, the developer can use a single workstation with a type 2 hypervisor like virtual machine to run all 3 separate virtual machines. Then this will give a very safe testing environment that can be rolled back instantly if there is a clash, if there is a crash, or if there is a crash during the operations without affecting the developer's main virtual machine, and main physical operating system. Thirdly, we will be looking at the virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI, for remote work. Assuming a company adopts a remote work policy, but needs secured access to corporate data, the company can host employees' desktops on a central server where employees will remotely connect into their virtual desktop from their personal home devices. This will be this will keep the desktop environment remain secure in the data center, while the company reduces the cost of buying physical laptop, maybe desktop computers, and so on. So for in the case of we will be looking